Hi there. I realize it's been a little while since you've gotten a video update from me. A lot of stuff has been going on. Carpentry on the house is still in progress. There's a lot of wood that's been replaced, and we're nearing the end on that. There's some color going on the house, so I'll try to do a walk around when there's something that is a little more obvious. But for now, I want to show you a little side project I've been working on. As we got into the third floor windows, so that's the windows in the attic, there are 5 square sashes, nearly square, that there was one that was missing, and there was one, I'll show you here. So this is a couple of the sashes out of the attic. This one is in fair shape, but obviously needs glass. So there's that one. This is an original one. I've taken off the paint. Sorry, how about I show you? So I've taken the paint off of this one, and this black paint, this is actually what the original color of all the windows in the house was. You see there's a few other colors on there. And that's, I took a lot of that off with heat. And it's tough to get that paint off, but as you look at, once I got that off, look at the quality of the wood on this edge. And if we get over here to this edge, this sash is pretty well gone. And right here where the seat is for, where the glass needs to sit in the seat, that is gone as well. So we've got a crack in this glass. This sash has got to go. So with the one missing sash and the rotted sash, I've got at least 2 that need to be replaced. Then there's this other factor that these had, let me reach back here. Sorry for the camera work. So these had, from the other side, these little fake muttons to make them look like multi-pane windows. So these would snap in from the inside, and they had these little plastic deals on them, which that's sort of most of one of them, but this is how much is left of the other side. And you can see I've stripped this window and taken all the glass out and the putty mostly out, but there's the other mounting. So not only, these are a bit of a shortcut, and I'm going to try to do something similar, but not quite so cheesy, hopefully. So let me show you the process here and some of the stuff I've been working on. Okay, so if we're going to try to make a window sash this size, first of all, we're going to need to know the outside dimensions of the sash. In this case, I can't show you into it. It's 29 by 28, okay? The inside dimensions of the sash are going to be different on where the glass goes in from the actual wood. In this case, there's a small step on that. I made a bigger step because I'm dealing with a little off-size. The glass was cut a little oversized. So this is just 24 inches to the bottom edge of the wood, and it is, without going through everything too much, it's 23 3/4 on that dimension. Okay, and then there is a shelf or a lip that goes along all the way here, and that's what the glass will rest on. So we've got different dimensions for this. This is actually the bottom of the window, and that piece is almost 3 inches wide. This piece on the side is a little over almost 2 1/4, 2 3/16. This piece likewise about 2 3/16, and this other side's the same. Now my windows, replacing these, are a little off size. I'm going to show you on a couple of scrap pieces how easy it is to make a window sash with 2x4s and a table saw. Now this isn't going to be a luxurious go in your house in the living room window, but it's a principle that works. I was taught it by a good friend of mine, and was able to make window sashes for our barn and our garage with it, and they've worked out pretty well. So okay, so I want to show you how to make a window frame out of a 2x4 and a table saw. Now I won't show you all the sawing because number one, this is a very old Delta saw from 1958, so safety features are sort of an afterthought, and I really don't want to run afoul of the YouTube gods or their legal department. I'd like to show you how to do this, but I don't want to freak out the lawyers. So if I want to cut this off here, the first thing I would do is determine my depth, and then on the saw blade, this is a kerf. That kerf at its topmost point, if you can see its topmost point on the circle, I want that to be, in this case, 7/16, and I'm going to show you on a tape measure. That is going to cut 7/16 into the material. Okay? The piece I'm mating with, this piece, is 2 1/4. Hope you can see that okay. So 2 1/4. So this needs to be 2 1/4. So, okay. You can see that tongue is already cut. Hopefully I can get it on the camera here. Okay, this piece needs to be 2 1/4. There you can see it's 2 1/4. So what I would do then is set the depth of the fence, the waist cut. So in other words, I'm cutting off 2 1/4 to this side of the blade, because everything from the blade that way will go away. So I would put this on, use proper safety goggles, procedures, techniques, call your congressman and your mother, and then turn the saw on. So I would run this through the saw, okay, and then I would all the way, could bring it back, and I would step it over a blade width and take it off again. And I would continue to walk it. Now, it's possible to do that faster, but you get the idea. And I would continue to walk it, then I would flip it over, and I would do the same thing. By flipping it over and doing it the same way on each side, I'm ensuring that this piece is in the middle and that these are the same width. So then when I cut the mating groove, which I really won't show you how to do that, and I relief cut all that out, which can be done on a bandsaw, or you can get creative with a table saw. But again, that's a little bit more. Once we're done with that, this joint will go together very snugly, and doesn't even need, if it's cut tight enough, it doesn't need any glue to hold it together while you're working with the piece. Next, I'll show you how we cut this step. Now I made these bigger than normally you would. If you looked at the window, it was barely 3/16 of an inch. These are bigger than they needed to be because I was kind of fighting with the dimensions of the window. It was a little overcut, so I'm trying to adjust for that. Okay, we're over at the router. You may have noticed that it's dirty. You may also notice that it's just a pretty simple router. It's not a really high end. You don't need to have. It is nice to have really nice tools. A real quick look around my shop, you can see I don't have that many nice tools. I have functional tools, and that's just fine. So let's say we want to make this groove in our piece of wood a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. We're going to make it a little less than that, so let's say 7/16 deep by about 7/16. So I'm going to use this. Again, I'm looking at where the cutter is at 90 degrees. It's going to be sticking out the most. So I'm going to adjust the fence of the router table, which is, I'm going to get a new router table someday. This is more than just crummy. But I'll show you the gist of this so you can see. And this is not really supposed to be a major how-to video. It should be something that's encouraging, that you don't, that you do feel like it's something you can do. All you gotta just try, and you'll fail, and that'll be part of the learning experience. Did I show you the scrap wood? A lot of it. So I'm going to dial down the depth of the cut to about 7/16. I guess that's another thing I would say, is that it's good to have old lumber around, and be able to experiment and try stuff. And if something doesn't work, you haven't wasted a good piece. So this is, again, so now that we have the router set up, we've got the router bit set where we want. The fence is set for the depth. So it's going to show, if I turn this to where I said, top center, right? That is 7/16 from the fence. And that is about 7/16 high from the table to the top of that point. So that is set. Now I'll start it up and I'll show you how the cut works and how noisy this thing is. Okay, I've got the depth set that I want and the depth of the cut and the size of the cut. And we're going to turn this old router on and I'll show you how this works. I already pre-cut a little bit so you didn't have to endure that noise. But that is a nice square edge cut in the wood. Okay. The next thing is figuring out how to use, I wanted to make muttons. Muttons are these squares. And I showed you on those original windows that they were real ones. These are fake. Okay, for my fake muttons, I've got two lengths. They're very little difference, about a 1/2 inch different. 5/8 by 5/8 pieces cut square. I laid them on top of the old muttons, and I measured and marked, gotta find the one I did, where they cross. Okay. Now this will need to be a 5/8 wide by 5/16 deep groove, and about 1 million of them. So I'm going to do this on the table saw. So I'm going to adjust the height of this to where, again, this top kerf at its top point is going to hit at 5/16. Like I said, now it's at 7/16. I'll crank it down, and right there is about 5/16. This is a little complicated with this blade because it's got a pointed kerf. It cuts nice, but it's got instead of a flat topped kerf, it's pointed. So we'll see how that cuts. To get my 5/8, got the marking here, and I've got my carpenter's pencil relatively sharp, but I'm just going to mark on either side of one of the other boards. And like I told you, I like to use test pieces to see how this is going to work. So, happen to have a couple pieces that were a little too rough. None of this lumber is beautiful, but let's do the same process here, where we've got a mark. For the center, and we've got a width there to there. See the lines? So have I got this to where you can see it? Okay, you've got the width there to there, and I've got the depth of that set. It's a good piece. I don't want to lose track of it. So now I'm going to just put this on here and eyeball down the saw blade. Gotta get this. That is not going to work. how snug that fits. It worked out okay, don't you? Now the mating piece, we would need to do the same way. So let's try this. We've got this one really marked. Okay, I'm going to do this and mark the lines on either side of this. I'm going to cut this one out. Turn this all on. Loads me up with sawdust. Now these should lay together. I've got one a little snug. The idea is they fit together like that. Now, like I said, this one's still a little snug, but this isn't an exact science, so I'm going to have to work it a little bit. You can see that that blade cuts a little not very smooth for this type of work. If I walk it back and forth side to side on there, I'll clean up some of that like this one did. So that's the idea. We just have to do that about 1,000,000 times. So not just because I'm lazy, but I want this to be repeatable. I'm going to actually put all of this size together and cut them at once. And I'm going to tape them together. We'll see how this works. I've got them butted against the fence, so I know they're exactly even, at least to begin with. I'm going to tape across the top and then wrap this tape around the bottom. This is just masking tape, actually. Crummy masking tape, but it will work. So without making it too much thicker, it's just one lap on the bottom in the end. And now that these are the same, I'll run tape around that side too. And the idea would be now that we're going to cut all 6 of these together 3 times. So the other reason besides me being lazy is this way they'll be consistent. And that cut will be my guide, and I'll just cut right through all the way on all of them. So I have to cut through this way. But to add to my success, at least hopeful success, I'm going to do a little bit more marking on these. So this is the line up, and I'll measure 5/8 with a little bit of snug built in. You can always make the hole bigger. You can't make it smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and mark lines all the way down the top of these. What this is going to let me do is sight down the lines onto the blade from the top. Likewise, I'm going to use this line, and then I'm going to measure 5/8 of an inch from there over, trying to be, woodworking's not super accurate, but if you, what's the saying, aim small, miss small? So there's my lines. Here's the other line. I didn't draw that yet, did I? You can see I've got an ugly knot there. I would have normally wanted to turn that over and cut that out, but I don't want to untape these now. so I will deal with that. Remember, it's going in the attic. I have to keep telling myself that. Both to encourage me when I'm making them not so good, and to keep me from obsessing too much on it. Because, well, anybody that knows me knows I never obsess over anything. All right, let's check that one. I just didn't feel quite right. 5/8. Can never tell where this camera's not doing too bad. I'm using a GoPro on some of this and just an iPhone on the rest of it. Honestly, I think the iPhone, that's obviously easier to use, but it does a good job. All right, so here goes nothing. You guys ready for either success or colossal failure? All right, now see, I can look down there and I can see this line lined up with the edge of that blade. Right there's the cutting. That's where the edge of the cutting is going to happen. So I can start by eyeballing that and just bring the material back a little bit and fire up the old saw. Okay, I didn't video cutting the tape off from holding the camera because, you know, that was going to be a train wreck. So these are the pieces and all the grooves are cut. Now, do you want to see if they fit together? So do I. I'll tell you what, first though, I'm going to get a little chisel and take care of some of these ridges from the saw blade. One thing that has been kind of interesting about this whole house project is just the craftsmanship that went into building the house. Some of the details, and just you think about the tools that they had to work with. And the amazing craftsmanship that went into the house, just a house. And it's hard to find that anymore. It's just hard to find, well, honestly, for the amount of labor that had to go in it back then, it'd be awful hard to afford it today. Okay, now the moment of truth. We're going to try to assemble these things and see how tight or loose they fit. I'll set these aside over here and spread these out. And try to join them up. I need to go get an encourager, but that one went together okay. This one has to be snug. It's okay, snug is good. There you go. It is, at least test fit, worked pretty well. And we'll glue them We'll do a little sanding on them, and we'll route a little bit of a decorative edge around here. It'll simulate the other ones, drill holes in the end of them, and then we can get them mounted up. So that looks pretty good.